Good evening and welcome to the Cover One Buffalo podcast. You are joining your host, Greg Tompsett, tonight as we finally catch our breath a little bit and step back from all the excitement of the first week of free agency. I think the majority of business has been taken care of, and we're going to now take a look at a couple different things tonight. I think we have a fun exercise that people are going to enjoy and a couple new folks you're going to hear from. So before we get into that, just want to remind you to go over to cover1.net, take a look at all the stuff we have going on, a lot of new contributors coming in, some great voices, all the draft prep you can do with Russell and Christian, video breakdowns from Eric. We've done a couple of really cool sessions going over the impact that some of the new free agent additions have made. And I think those have been really good exercises. So come on over, check it out. Premium subscription is only $10. It's really worth it. Make sure you're checking out everything we have going on. But today we're going to be able to go through a couple of different things, but I thought it'd be interesting to start out just to kind of recap where we're at. Obviously, we spent a lot of time talking about the exciting moves like the trade for Stephon Diggs, the defensive linemen that were added. I'm a big fan of the overall composition of Mario Addison, Quentin Jefferson, and Vernon Butler. I think that's a net positive and improvement over what we had with Jordan Phillips and Shaq Lawson. I think it really adds a lot of depth to the rotation. I like the linebacker group we brought in. Both A.J. Klein and Tyler Matakevich have a lot of value and are going to be able to add more to the table. I love the extension for Jordan Poyer, well-deserved and something that was certainly a good position to be able to bring more of our guys back. The couple moves that took place since our last show, if you haven't had a chance to listen to it, Joe Buscaglia came on from The Athletic, and we talked through the first week of free agency. Not a ton of moves since then. The only things we brought back a familiar name, Taiwan Jones, technically listed as a running back, but really a special teams contributor. Sadly, you may remember him for that kind of jailbreak play that Deshaun Watson made in the playoff game, and he was the recipient of that. It wasn't quite a screen pass, but he was the outlet back out of the backfield that took the ball down inside the 10-yard line for that game-winning field goal for the Texans. He's coming back, obviously, in a special teams contributor role, and my impression is he's an upgrade over Sonoris Perry. I think that he is a guy that is a little bit more productive of a running back and an emergency kind of break class in case of emergency kind of guy, and then as good or better as a special teams coverage guy. The combination of having having him in place and Tyler Matakevich, I think is a pretty sizable improvement over Sonoris Perry and Maurice Alexander. They're two guys who are actually both better on the field. Matakevich filled in for Ryan Shazier after his tragic accident, and then Taiwan Jones can actually play some running back if you need. Obviously, ideally, neither of them play anything from scrimmage and are both just key special teams players, and they're both really, really good at that and better at that than where Maurice Alexander or Sonoris Perry were. So I think we made some upgrades there. I've joked before, Dean Marlowe is the roster cockroach that you just can't kill. He's a guy who knows Bean's system inside and out. He actually played some halfway decent nickel last year, stepped in when Taron Johnson was hurt, was maybe what they thought Saran Neal was going to be able to be, and he's got a shot to make this roster. I think Jaquan Johnson's going to have a word in that, and obviously the draft could significantly do that, and we'll see if that comes into play later on tonight. And the final move just happened today, and it was Isaiah McKenzie coming back. And we had some really good questions early on why the Bills didn't RFA tender Isaiah McKenzie. And there was a decent choice in play to do the original round tender. Obviously, you're not going to do a first or second round tender with a player like Isaiah McKenzie, but an original round tender for him, which is a fifth round pick for Isaiah McKenzie, would have been 2.144 million. And that's just more than I think was worth risking. There was no real chance that teams were going to sign him to a bigger deal than that to be able to net out a fifth round pick. So it was something that I just don't think ever was really in play. And a lot of fans were worried, saying, oh man, well, he was really good in the jet motion and those jet sweeps and pop passes and kind of the eye candy for the defense. And I think it's great to bring a guy like that back. I can't lie. I hope we draft a guy who's an upgrade over him. So he's good at that role, but he's a generous 5'8". I've heard he's closer to 5'6". But they list him at 5'8", 173, and that's about right. He's probably closer to 5'7", 170, and he is quick and fast, but there's just so many limitations when you're that small, and he doesn't have the best hands from a return capability standpoint, so he doesn't really give an option beyond Andre Roberts, but he's good in the role that they use him for, that gadget guy on offense. So if we go big in the draft, and again we'll see that tonight on where we go. Say we get a guy like Michael Pittman Jr. or Chase Claypool, having McKenzie as your fifth receiver is a nice option. If we draft a guy like KJ Hamler, Brandon Ayuk, Jalen Rager, even later on a guy like Joe Reed from Virginia, that could be trouble for Isaiah McKenzie. So we'll get to that in later shows when we talk about our positional breakdowns. But the guys like Duke Williams, Robert Foster, Isaiah McKenzie are going to be very intently watching the draft. If the Bills take a Jalen Rager, a Brandon Ayuk, KJ Hamler, Duke Williams is going to be really excited. If they take Chase Claypool or Michael Pittman, Isaiah McKenzie is going to be really excited. I think those guys are going to be directly impacted by the kind of player, the skill set, the body type that they draft. So before we get into that exercise tonight, you guys may have seen on social media that the Bills or that Cover One has added some new talent. We brought some guys aboard. They're going to be helping us out from a production standpoint, some writing, some different things. One of the first guys that's going to be doing that has joined us here on the show tonight. You'll be seeing him a little bit more on the production side of the Cover One Buffalo podcast. You'll be seeing some of his draft breakdowns of things coming up. And I'd like to introduce to everyone Nathan Papandrea. Nate, how we doing?
Good. How are you, Greg? Super happy to be here.
Appreciate it. Tell the folks a little bit about yourself, where they might see some of your work you've done before.
All right. So I've been writing draft for probably about 2 years now. I've written for websites like Big Board Scouting, the Athletes Hub, and Homeline Sports. I've been to the Senior Bowl the past 2 years trying to network and meet people. But yeah, that's me. I'm happy to be a part of the team.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. You may hear a little some tidbits and some workups that Nathan has done on some of the guys that we picked tonight. And what we're talking about there is that we thought tonight would be a good time to be able to get into where the mind of Bills Mafia is. And, we've built a great network of resources within our Slack channel. And I think that it really brings in the voice of the fan, and we have so many really informed fans within our group and consistent contributors in the Slack channel. And one of them that always stood out to Eric and I is Ron Beck, somebody who's in there with us all the time. Ron's going to be representing you guys tonight as the voice of Bills Mafia. Ron, how we doing? You ready to get started?
I'm doing good, man. Let's do it.
All right, beautiful. So we're going to switch over now, and we're going to go right into the Draft Network, their lovely site. We like their draft engine and the way that they run some of these things here. We'll be able to go through where we think they're going to take some of these things, and we'll talk through. Ron is going to play the role of Brandon Beane. I'll be the Sean McDermott role, kind of chirping in his shoulder on who I think he should pick, but ultimately Ron's going to make the picks tonight and tell us where it is. So we're going to do all 7 rounds. We're going to run through here relatively quickly and go through where they're at and just get the voice of, okay, now that we've filled a lot of these roster spots, we have some needs that are out there. In my mind, I still wouldn't mind a cornerback 2. I think running back 2 is still a spot. I'd like to see a size receiver. I'd love to see some juice off the edge. I wouldn't mind maybe a bigger safety who can play some nickel. So we'll see where you take us here tonight as we go through. We're going to start things up with the Bills. Obviously now with trading away Stephon Diggs, it's going to be interesting how we can be able to still get value, but it's kind of tough to do some of these elements when we're used to having that 22nd pick. So the names are scrolling by here. We got a lot of things moving quickly. Some of the common names are all running through. We'll go through some of the most recent picks here, some names that you probably would have been interested in. Justin Jefferson, J.K. Dobbins, Lucas Niang, DeAndre Swift, Robert Hunt, Nick Harris, Jalen Johnson, Josh Uche, Jonathan Taylor, and Denzel Mims. So first, let me know what position you'd like to see, and then we'll pull some of those up.
Running back.
Running back, okay. So at running back, we do have Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Cam Akers as the top. They rank Eno Benjamin, Zach Moss coming after them. I'll run through some of the common ones. Brandon Ayuk, T. Higgins are the top receivers on their list. From an edge standpoint, Curtis Weaver, Terrell Lewis, Jonathan Greenard. From a corner standpoint, Cam Dantzler, Troy Pratt Jr., Bryce Hall. At safety, Antoine Winfield, Jeremy Chin, and Kyle Duggar.
Yeah. I'm gonna go running back, man.
All right.
Um,
So
I really like Akers. I think he's one of the better running backs in the draft. That's who I would pick.
beautiful.
I
I'm
feel
a
like
big
we need it.
No, I like it. I think there's a lot of logic for it. I think that Cam Akers is the kind of guy that is almost almost similar to Devin Singletary in the fact that his raw athleticism might not translate to as fluid and as smooth as he is in the field. And I thought that showed in some of the on-field drills that were there, and being able to show, how quick he was over the bag. I think he dominated that Deuce Staley drill that they
Yep.
did,
Yep.
and just looked gorgeous going over there. And I think he'd be a great pick to be able to pair with Singletary. So I like that start. Uh, let's see the next one. So now that we've gone through running back, where are we at for next position you want to focus on?
I'm thinking corner or edge. Maybe a
All right.
wide receiver though. I don't know what's available.
So at corner, some names that you've seen connected to the Bills: Michael
Yeah,
Ojemudia,
I like him.
Harrison Hand, Darnay Holmes is their top rated guy. On the edge, Kenny Willekes, interesting. Jabari Zuniga, Alton Robinson, some interesting names there. Wide receiver, Brian Edwards, Chase Claypool, Michael Pittman. So some interesting names for size that are there as well.
Yep.
Any other
Um,
spots?
I'm gonna go corner.
All right.
I'm gonna go with the kid from Iowa. I like him.
I like him a lot as well, and I think Michael Ojemudia is a person that I think Bills fans should really get used to, in being able to hear, the scheme from Iowa to Buffalo is really similar in the defense that they run. He's got great length. He's really good in that kind of role, and I actually think the fact that he doesn't have, elite athleticism could help hide him a little bit, but he's also not like a 4.7 guy either. Like, he's still
Right.
got athleticism and has some high end skill. And, it's something that I think he could really translate to where he can help out the team a little bit more.
Right. I just noticed that Nate's still muted. I don't know if you know that or not.
Let's see.
There you go.
Nate, you there? Any thoughts on Ojemudia?
Yeah, I saw him down at the Senior Bowl. He's got an impressive body type. He's a longer dude. He's, like you say, he's not super athletic, but I think in the Bill CB room, you could use a physical guy who can, press receivers on the outside, jam them, and I think he'll offer a lot for that cornerback room.
Nice. Yeah, I think that I think he's definitely a name Bills fans should get used to. That he's
Absolutely.
absolutely an option, whether it's anywhere in that third or fourth round range. I think he's absolutely in play.
He
All
could
right, so
absolutely make it to day 3.
oh yeah, that could be good fortune for the Bills. And again, some teams that get hyped up on the high end athleticism can get excited. So we've gone running back and cornerback. So the other positions you've asked about, wide receiver, we
Old
do
line,
still have
and wide
Chase
receiver.
Claypool.
Yeah, that's
Um,
probably who I'm gonna go. Oh,
Michael Pert that's a
Matt
really good
Peart.
value at this spot.
Yeah,
Um, Edge, Alex Highsmith, another. You got a couple nice options
I know.
here.
There's like 3 really good guys. I like all 3 of those top guys.
Yeah, I
Him
wouldn't blame you for any of those three.
Um, I think for what we need the most, I would say the big wide receiver. I like Claypool. Let's go with him.
I like it. So I agree. I think that it. I also think that's who the Bills would take. I think if they're in that spot, one, Claypool is a phenomenal special teams player and has a great history of being able to genuinely contribute from a special team standpoint, and then brings that size and high upside athleticism. Now, I've cautioned a lot of fans who saw the combine and were like, "Oh, this is great. He's going to be a first rounder now." And I'd caution them that, hey, his film's closer to a fourth or fifth round pick
Yeah.
than a first round pick. But that's awesome when you can bring in a guy who maybe hasn't tapped all of his potential, and you have Stephon Diggs, John Brown, and Cole Beasley in front of him. You don't need him to play a ton immediately. He can just play where it makes sense, down in the red zone, big play, 4 wide receiver sets, and you can bring him along slowly because Brown and Bean are both 30, so you're 30 and 31. So I think that's a great pick and a great value so far. So to recap our first 3 picks, we've got Cam Akers out of Florida State in the second, Michael Ojemudia out of Iowa in the second, or in the third, Chase Claypool, wide receiver out of Notre Dame in the fourth. the other spots you asked about, offensive tackle, you have Justin Herron, Terrence Steele.
Yeah.
Edge, you have Jonathan Garvin, Carter Coughlin. Interior O-line, you've got maybe Darrell Williams out of Mississippi State.
Yeah.
Keith Ishmael out of San Diego State's interesting. Geno Stone, the safety out of Iowa.
You know who I like here. Yep.
Yeah, I was wondering. Tanner Muse out of Clemson. I think he's going to be a real common name attached to the Bills in this area. Is that who you want to go with?
Yeah, that's what I want to go with.
I like it. So anybody who watched the combine, he was the guy that Deion Sanders was stopping himself from saying anything about when
Yeah.
the white guy ran ran the 4.41 or whatever it was. But he was he put up phenomenal performance in the combine, and it's easy for guys to get lost in a defense like Clemson where you have 11 NFL caliber guys. So it's interesting there. Did you see anything from Muse or Claypool, Nate?
I mean, yeah, with Claypool, I mean, similar to Miles Boykin coming out a few years, he is super raw, and everyone went all crazy about the athletic numbers. But I think when you look at the Bills wide receiver room, I think their tallest receiver is like 6 foot and change, and that's Stephon Diggs. So you look at a guy who could really change the dynamic of a receiving room, with a guy who's 6'4", 230, and runs a 4.42. It's something to build upon, and it gives Josh Allen a weapon that can win contested catch situations downfield right away.
Right.
Nice. Love it. All right, so now we're getting a little bit later in the draft here. We got a couple picks left. So we've made our first 4. We got 3 left. We're going into the 6th round now, so getting some of the later names. You've already addressed what are most of the main needs here: running back, cornerback, wide receiver, safety. No big guys yet, so you maybe want to look in that area.
Well, I see a guy already that I like. I like the kid from Missouri, the tight end. I know that we don't really need a tight end, but giving Allen another weapon can't hurt.
You just want me to have to say his name. So
that's why I didn't say it.
Albert Okwuegbunam is.
Are you sure? That's no, I'm just kidding.
He's a phenomenal athlete. He crushed it at the combine. So he's a guy that I think brings similar athletic upside to Dawson Knox. I'm curious to see how he would translate in the NFL, but I think there's a chance that he could be a material upgrade over Tommy Sweeney, or if, God forbid, we can't get a healthy training camp from Tyler Kroft again, he could be that luxury to be able to move on in that area. So that's one of those picks that you get later to this spot that you're able to kind of take a dart throw because you're just looking for athletic upside and something that's there. But Albert O is a guy that I think is going to be intriguing with a pretty poor tight end class overall, and he might have been the best athlete out of everybody there. Nate, anything on him?
Yeah, he's always a guy I've been super intrigued by, but he's just a guy who hasn't been able to stay on the field, so that's why everyone's not really talking about him a little bit more. He's a phenomenal athlete, and I think he offers a lot of downfield ability for quarterbacks. However, he's been constantly injured, so I feel like everyone kind of questions his ability, and that's why he's just not in anybody's conversation right now.
Yeah. No, it makes sense. It makes sense. All right, so again, we've got 3 on the offensive side, 2 on the defensive side. Where do you want to look next?
Let's look at O-line. Let's look at offensive tackle, see what's left.
So we've got Throckmorton. Man, it is crazy.
I'd probably throw a dart at Trey Adams.
Trey Adams this late. It's a guy that 18 months ago, you're talking about people were projecting him as a top 10 pick. He then has, a rough season, and an injury season, and just he's a guy that, with the luxury of having Cody Ford and Ty Nsekhe, to be able to completely stash a guy like that, having the chance that he regains some of that initial progress is intriguing. So is that who you like here with our second 6th rounder?
Let's look at edge. This is a 6 still. Yeah, I like Trey Adams. Let's do that.
So yeah, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th. Yeah, there's 2 6th rounders. So this is the second 6th rounder.
Yeah.
So Carter Coughlin's still there. He's interesting.
Yeah, he is. He had a good combine too.
And then an interior O-line, Keith Ishmael is another name that's interesting, but I think that Trey Adams is right there from an upside standpoint.
Yeah, we'll go with the tackle. I think we need a tackle more than we need interior, even though I feel like we could use one.
I like it. All right, we'll go with Trey Adams, and he's the kind of guy that may give the Bills the luxury down the line, that if they decide Cody Ford wants to move and he shows something in the practice field and training camp that maybe there is some upside later on, gives the flexibility to be able to go that
Right.
direction.
Yep.
All right. Of course
What
we
we
got
cut off?
Yeah, they ran short of players. This has been happening. I gave Joe Marino a hard time with it.
Dude, it's fine.
Yeah, we'll go through who was a name you were targeting with a later pick from
I'm gonna
the
go with your punter because just for per on
I like
the
it.
Slack channel.
No, and I like it. It's I think that there's, a combination whether you see someone like Michael Turk is my favorite out of Arizona State. A lot
Yeah.
of people really like Braden Mann out of Texas A&M. And I think it really brings a lot to the table. And I'd honestly almost be surprised if they don't go that route. I think that they need to make an investment there. And it's nice to have a guy like that under control for 4 years. And both of them seem to be really talented. So we'll count that as our 7th round pick here.
Okay.
So kind of stepping back and looking at it. So we ended up with Cam Akers with our 2nd round pick, Michael Ojemudia with our 3rd round pick, Chase Claypool, wide receiver out of Notre Dame in the 4th, Tanner Muse, safety out of Clemson in the 5th, Albert Okwuegbunam out of Missouri in the 6th. Our 2nd 6th round pick, Trey Adams. And then in the 7th round, went with Michael Turk, punter out of Arizona State. So, stepping back, did this address the needs you were hoping for, Ron?
Yeah, I think it did. And in fact, I think we got some value at some of the, mid rounds. I feel like Muse, if he doesn't work out at safety, you might be able to move him into linebacker. He can move around a little bit,
A
So
lot of similarities to Matt Milano.
Yeah, exactly. And, Turk, what are we going to get in the 7th round that we're going to keep? I mean, with this depth on this roster, the odds of a 7th rounder making the team aren't real good unless he's a special teamer.
Yeah, I agree. Nate, how do you think the Bills did, coming from kind of an objective outside standpoint? Do you think this is the kind of draft that Bills fans could get excited about?
I feel like absolutely. I definitely feel like you guys address the kind of the needs of your team. You guys have really a blue collar team, and like you said, with a punter, I mean, a guy these days who can really flip field position. I feel like that's someone who could be super valuable. Tanner Muse is like I think 230 pounds. He's definitely someone you could put in the box in like hybrid situations. Cam Akers is one of my favorites. He's elusive, he's compact, he's strong. He's a big contrast from Devin Singletary. So I feel like you guys addressed everything, and I feel like you guys could be a real contender in the AFC. And I think Ron's one hell of a GM.
Appreciate it, Nate.
Nice. All right. So I really appreciate you guys jumping on tonight and being able to help in the exercise we had here. Before we close things out, just want to say thank you, Ron. Appreciate all your contributions in the Slack channel. For anybody else who wants to come in, be able to talk with Ron, talk to some of the other guys in there. We have a great time with it. Nathan, thank you for coming on tonight, making your show debut. You guys will hear more from his name later on. Anything else for the folks before we close things out?
Stay safe, guys. That's it from me.
Stay safe, and I'm excited to be working with you.
Awesome. Thank you very much. So, guys, thank you again for everything tonight. Hopefully this was a good way to step back a little bit, take a look at what the Bills have done so far, where the needs align from a draft standpoint. I don't think there's a lot of other big moves coming. You might be able to see a couple what I'll call swap out moves. Maybe they sign another veteran running back like a Carlos Hyde or Isaiah Crowell or CJ Procise, something like that, and it ends up replacing TJ Yeldon. I think it's possible they knock on the door for an Everson Griffin or a Marcus Golden or someone like that in exchange for the cap savings of moving on from Trent Murphy. I'd love to see that as a trade and not as a release, but something in that range. I don't expect any other big moves. I have the Bills down around $22 million in cap space after the Patrick DeMarco restructuring, which saved, about almost 450,000 in cap space, so minor, but a little bit of money back there. I know a lot of fans have asked where the restructuring is for Trent Murphy, and I have to assume that the fact that they've done 3 others to this point and he hasn't, it really just speaks to the leverage. I think that means his agent probably feels like he can get him $6 or $7 million on the open market. And if the Bills want to move on from there, they have $8 million in cap savings. He counts, around $8 million in cash or a total cap hit of $10 million because of some of the prorated signing bonus. So he doesn't have a great incentive to take that much of a pay cut. If they got him to go from $8 million in cash down to $6 million, and he goes from 10 million in cap savings or cap hit down to 8 million, maybe. But anything beyond there, his agent probably feels like he can get that on the open market. So they're kind of in a no-win situation there from a restructure standpoint, but they could move on from a trade standpoint if they see someone else. I think it's most likely that that's our top 9 defensive linemen going into next year, short of the draft. I think that we've added a really strong rotation. The flexibility of Quentin Jefferson to play both defensive tackle and defensive end is going to add a lot on game day. So we'll see where that goes. But I think fans should probably get used to Trent Murphy's name more than what they're hoping for. And everyone's assuming that it's inevitable that he's going to get moved. I don't think it's crazy that if on draft night, let's say the value in the exercise we did with Ron tonight, let's say there was somebody just undeniable at pick 54 and Yetur Gross-Matos fell to 54 and it was just a no-brainer. Maybe then there's an impetus to move him. But anything beyond there, I don't see some 5th-round pick being the reason that he doesn't make this team. So we'll see where that goes. I think he's worthwhile. And if anything, he's an awesome luxury as the 8th man in your defensive line rotation, your 4th defensive end. So as I've ended most of the other shows we've done here, the same thing. We're not here to talk about, politics or debate the media reaction to things. We want to be the release and the alternative for you guys to be able to get your mind off the realities of the day. We know there's a lot of people out there who need help and support. I just ask you guys to be considerate, think of other people, check on your neighbors, check on your relatives, FaceTime your mom, check in with everybody, make sure everybody's doing all right. Hopefully we can get past this together. But I think it's going to take a little bit of time. So we're going to continue to be here for you. I've got an exciting show coming up at the end of the week. I'm going to have some of the guys from overthecap.com come on the show, talk a little bit about the roster building strategy of Brandon Beane, the way he structured contracts and the way he set things up. And I think this is going to be a fun talk to be able to get an objective outside view from some guys who know contracts and salary structure really well. And Brad from overthecap.com is going to be coming on, really good guy. And I work with him and Jason all the time on just bouncing ideas off from contract restructuring. When you hear these new deals kicking around the numbers, they both really, really know their stuff. So excited to have Brad on. We'll talk a little bit more about that later in the week. But you've been listening to Cover One Buffalo, and we are out.